Hey everyone, Michael Anthony here. Van Halen, Chickenfoot, Sammy in the Circle. But anyway, you're listening to the only podcast that is dedicated to breaking down the entire Van Halen catalog one track at a time. And the podcast will rock. Ow!
Hello, baby!
Welcome, all you rockers, rockettes, and everything in between. You have joined us for a new edition of And the Podcast Will Rock. We are the show that dives into the catalog and discography of one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, Van Halen. One track at a time, you know the drill. I am your co-host, Mark Kamier. With me, as always, I think, is Corey Morissette. Corey, how you doing over there? I don't have a visual cue.
You don't. I'm not broadcasting this from my normal location. We were all set up to do this on Wednesday like we always do. And then Wednesday morning, it dawned on me and my 10-year-old daughter that it was her birthday. And she was turning 11, and I should probably maybe spend the evening with her. So we trucked off to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, watched my other daughter play soccer and ate ice cream cake. So we couldn't record last night. So today, I'm actually broadcasting from Estevan, Saskatchewan. My day job as a community television producer has me busy here this weekend doing a live 33-hour telethon, raising money for United Way. So if you're listening to this, you want to log on, you go to myaccess.ca. There'll be links there. Log on, check out the telethon, and maybe help support the United Way here. This is a town of 11,000 people, and every year they raise upwards of $350,000 for the United Way. So starting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., Friday morning at 8 a.m., we're going live for 33 hours. So I'm not on my normal mic. Don't have my normal setup. I brought the wheel. It's mobile, fortunately, and I got a little snowball mic, and I'm going to try and get through this as best I can. So please bear with me.
Well, it wouldn't be very Canadian of you if you didn't have a snowball mic at hand. So kudos to you on that. That's a winter's joke. I apologize for making it. But nevertheless, even though Corey is sort of mobile at this moment, but he's still with us, we are joined by a guest this week. You guys know that October is the time to be spooky. It's the time to get a little bit crazy, not too crazy, keep it within reason. However, we like to watch crazy, scary movies at this point in time, most especially. And what better way to celebrate the scary season than with a podcast that's going to really give you the scary, spooky edge that you want. So coming to us from the You're All Doomed podcast, the Friday the 13th podcast, please welcome Brian Welch. Brian, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. This is very cool.
Brian's one of those patient types, Mark, that has been wanting to be on the show for a while and waited for us to get our shit together. So thank you very much for waiting, Brian. Thank you for jumping on this week kind of last minute because we thought, a Friday the 13th show in October is just too good to pass up.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate you calling me patient. I would say I'm more obnoxious because I did reach out to you guys like right at the beginning of when you guys launched the podcast. And I was like, oh, this is something I need to be on. And then hadn't heard anything for a while. And then you were kind of like sending out a call for requests. I think it was last week. And so I was like, well, I'll just send one more email and just let them know that I'm interested. And I was like, hey, it's me again. Don't forget about me. And you're like, we know, we're going to get you. So thank you very much.
Well, if there's anything that Jason Voorhees taught you, it's patience. You don't have to run after that victim. You can just take your time. They'll come. They'll eventually. You'll get it eventually. Yep. So, but do tell us a little bit about the podcast. Tell the people if they're not familiar with it, what you got going on over there.
Sure. So yeah, like you said, the podcast is called You're All Doomed. My buddy Greg and I were lifelong friends, and we started it back in the summer of 2018. And it was actually Greg's idea. We grew up watching the Friday the 13th movies as kids and then later as adults. And we would always have conversations about them. And he was like, why don't we just have a podcast where we have the like record those conversations and hope that that's interesting for the listeners. And then we decided that that was a great idea, but we wanted to come up with a little bit of a hook. So the hook was that we were going to review the movies 13 minutes at a time. So we would have one season that was dedicated to the first movie, and then each episode would be like the first episode would be the first 13 minutes, the second episode would be the next 13 minutes. And that was fun because it allowed us to like come up with like 9 or 10 episodes per movie, but it also forced us to kind of like scrutinize the movies in ways that we had never done before, because we'd always watched it like normal people, just at, you know, in one viewing. But when you have to watch something 13 minutes at a time, you have to get like really specific, and you're looking at things in the background, and you're looking at like details that are like things that are sitting on the shelf, or like an extra that like wanders on screen. You're like, what is this guy doing? And it created a lot of like really fun conversations that we hadn't had before, because we were always talking about more of like the high level like surface level stuff that you would just, you know, normally come across when you were watching the movie. But when you have to get into those like 13-minute details, you start to dig up some pretty interesting information. So it's been a ton of fun, and it took us about 4 years to get through the 12 movies that are released. And we're kind of in like a limbo stage now where I'm not going to go into all the details because it's super complicated, but there's this crazy lawsuit going on with the Friday the 13th franchise where nothing can be made until this lawsuit is resolved. And so we're kind of just spinning our wheels, and it's been since 2009 since the last Friday the 13th movie came out. So once we ran out of actual movies to talk about, we were like, well, we still want to talk about Friday the 13th stuff. So now we're kind of in this stage of looking at fan films. There's actually a pretty big community of just like amateur filmmakers and just general fans of the franchise that are going out and just making their own Friday the 13th movies. Now, they're not all feature length, like 90-minute movies, but some of them are like 15, 20 minutes, like just like a cool scene here and there. And a lot of it is like super low budget. It's just people with their friends that are just like going out in the woods and dressing up like Jason Voorhees and shooting stuff. But we've kind of earmarked like maybe 10 or 11 fan films that we want to check out. And we're still in the early stages of talking about it. But so far it's been fun. I mean, it's like obviously various levels of quality, and, you know, but we're not here to like scrutinize them too much, because these are just like fans that are just going out and having fun. So like, who are we to say that, you know, the acting sucks or the special effects aren't good? It's really just about like, did we enjoy it? And so we're like 2 or 3 movies into those like fan films and are having a good time so far.
Well, that's awesome. So yeah, be sure to check that out if you want more Friday the 13th goodness. I assure you, you'll have a good time. Corey, though, speaking of birthdays, first of all, congrats on your kid's birthday. Hope it was a great time, despite losing you for the scheduled night. But I'll tell you something, that seems to be a theme with birthdays in this podcast. And I bring that up because we just had, at the time of this recording, we just had earlier David Lee Roth's birthday. David Lee Roth, Diamond Dave himself. I believe he, how old did he turn? 68, I think. Believe he turned 60. Yeah. So he's up there. He's getting up there. And these new recordings of him doing previous songs, sort of, you know, the numbers reflect that a little bit. But hey, kudos, because he still looks pretty great. So good old Diamond Dave. But not to downplay anything, but at the time of this recording, on October 13th, there is another significant birthday related to Van Halen. And of course, it is Mr. Cabo Wabo himself, Sammy Hagar's birthday. So, I mean, wherever you are out there listening, even if it's in the morning, grab yourself a shot of tequila, throw it back, and say you can't drive 55 in celebration for Sammy Hagar's 75th birthday. Oh my God. Sammy Hagar is older than Diamond Dave. If you had told me that before I looked at their birth dates, I would not have believed it, because it just doesn't seem right to me. But look, kudos to both of these men for looking so darn good for their age. I mean, all things considered, they look all right, especially Sammy. Sammy doesn't look like he's 75. Are you kidding me?
Mm-mm.
And the man's still going around. He's doing reality TV. He's doing, he's drinking all over the world. He's eating all over the world, and he's still touring, doing music. So kudos for being 75, and to all the rock stars of a certain age that are still doing it, still showing us young people. Well, some young people. I don't know if I'm so young anymore, but nevertheless, showing us how it's done. So happy birthday to Diamond Dave from a few days ago. And, spoiler alert, on the day we're recording, happy birthday to Sammy Hagar today. And of course, happy birthday to Corey's kid.
That's right. And actually, if I did my math right, David Lee Roth, 68 years old.
So 68 versus 70. Somehow, Sammy Hagar has 7 years on Dave. That just did you know that ahead of time?
I wouldn't have guessed it by looking at him, right? Like,
right.
David doesn't look a day over 93, and Sammy looks like he's still chopping trees down. He's a young buck still, and still partying too. He has a big birthday bash this weekend, I believe.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
Of course. The cobble wobble will flow and keep flowing. It's just, I mean, amazing. It's amazing. So kudos to the front men, the singers of Van Halen, the ones that we like to talk about. And I'll just leave it at that. So with that being said, Corey, anything else other than the happy birthdays going on in Van Halen news to your recollection?
That's really about it. I know Wolfie is still working on Mammoth 2. I saw a tweet the other day that he had just finished tracking all the drums, and he was pretty tired.
Right.
He's getting ready to lay down bass tracks next. So that album is coming along quite nicely, and I can't wait for it.
I love that he's giving us all almost a play-by-play of the recording process, because I mean, I think maybe he was just as surprised as anyone that first album did so well. And just, I guess, with the Taylor Hawkins tribute show and him being more in the limelight, so to speak, maybe he's just recognizing like, oh, okay, I actually have people care about what I'm doing and like want to know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna keep you guys informed. And I like that. And not to mention the fact that he's kind of, it's a bit of a show off, really, because it's like, look at me, I'm doing all the instruments on this album. It's like, let me just go ahead and brag on myself on how talented I am. And to him, I say, good on you, bro, because I can't play drums. So there's that. Well, if there's no other Van Halen news other than the birthdays, it's time to get into the Rockin' Poll. What do the poll results say? Last week we did Women in Love, and we were all pretty keen on Women in Love. But how did everyone else fare on Women in Love?
Well, everybody else was pretty keen on Women in Love as well. 93% What Dreams Are Made Of. 7% This Dream Is Over. However, I was talking with John Mariano, and he's afraid that there's a new sect that has broken away from his cult, because he voted for Women in Love. He's like, there's no way you can vote against that song. So there seems to be a new underground movement that has broken away from the cult of Mariano, that they don't even agree with him. So we're getting into dangerous times here.
I suspect it might be the people that I sort of interacted with this past week on Twitter. Yes. Like, people that love to listen to our show, but absolutely want to criticize everything we do. And it's like, okay, well, but we appreciate you listening, so thank you. I suspect it's these people. But nevertheless,
I caught that tweet too, and I love that his reasoning was, I just listen to your show for the music. I'm like, well, it's a good thing the only place you can hear Van Halen music is on our shitty podcast.
I'm glad we have the monopoly on that racket.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Our numbers would just nosedive if we didn't have that. Yeah,
no kidding. We'd be making bank if that were the case, or at least we'd be trying to. 93% says What Dreams Are Made Of. You know what? That's not so bad. It could have been worse. It could have been like Dreams. I'm still not over the result of that.
I know that's still going to be a head scratcher, but We got some comments here, Mark, if you're ready to hear them.
I'm ready.
All right. Airhead3 says, another great one. Great intro and outro in the lead up to the chorus. Love how the backing vocals are unison until harmonizing on women, night, and given. Also, it shouldn't be a surprise twist that it's another woman. After all, it's women, plural, in love. So, yeah, good point there, Airhead.
Indeed. Yeah.
Our good buddies from the Sean Geek and Fast Fret podcast said, oh, man, this one shows the diversity in their songwriting. Pure magic, yet a bit sideways from the standard Van Halen sound, just proving the Van Halen sound is not one-dimensional.
No, it isn't.
Nope, very well said. Our good buddy Kevin Brown from the Tom Petty Project says, I upvoted, but this one is a fairly middling early Van Halen track for me. It's well executed, but don't stand out particularly. Would have been a third option vote if I had it, but I would never skip it if it came on. So there's kind of a middling reaction to that one.
Wonder what a third option would be.
There's only so many dream songs.
Yeah. So what dreams are made of? The dream is over. Third option.
Spanked.
Yeah, spanked. Oh man, we'll get there eventually, Corey, and it'll be glorious.
We should maybe went by song title. A downvote could have been Source of Infection.
Or How Many Say I.
Yeah, there you go. Next, our good friend Tom says, the intro alone takes it to a different level. So 100% agree. And then he was mad because he couldn't get it on Google Podcasts for a couple of days, but we got that fixed. Tom hopefully was able to hear the show. He's actually going to be on the show next week. So very much looking at getting Tom on there. Scott says, Eddie's tapping intro is serene. High harmonies carry the song and make it memorable. DLR is more subdued than usual, but fits the overall tone and doesn't give us many Rothisms until the end. Also really dug the groove on the outro with some nice drum flourishes, a perfect deep cut.
I like it. Rothisms. I know exactly what he's talking. We all know what he's talking about.
100%. And then John Mariano chimed in when it was at 12%. He said 12%. Someone is trying to steal my cult. So there's definitely something going on there. It's probably that Dick Weasel you were talking to on
probably,
Twitter.
Yeah, probably the dude. Yeah, and whatever followers he might have.
Yep. Kyle says, love it. Eddie's tap harmonics in the intro are just awesome. Couldn't agree more. Then we got Chaz Charles who said, love Dave's lyrics. The intro is one of Ed's best. God forbid Roth does this in another fucking putrid Van Halen free version. Pray he doesn't. So Chaz is not a fan of Diamond Dave putting out these new Van Halen free versions of Van Halen tracks.
No, I don't. And I don't blame you, Chaz. I really don't.
Gene says, awesome vocals, killer guitars, lights out backing vocals. This one checks all the boxes, like most of the album. Definitely what dreams are made of. So
yes, sir.
Yes,
well
sir.
said.
And then Jonathan just raising a point saying, if you're going to downvote the song, people say why. Maybe we can learn something from you, like you are an idiot.
Oh, I mean, look, he's not wrong, but actually, I want to say somebody actually did explain why they downvoted, but I can't remember.
I think it's coming up here, but
okay.
Brad, who's also going to be on the show coming up, said, fantastic track. Mark the Bat said it best. This song demonstrates why Van Halen is magical. It's the blend of everything and all done really well. So someone
Brad.
pointed you out for saying something good.
Yeah, hey.
Jonathan comes back and says, I love what Eddie does in this song. The first note after the drum intro sounds like a saxophone. The backing vocals are just perfect. Good song for 1:30 a.m. bar about to close. Everyone chill and finish your beer.
That is 1,000% yes, good call. As soon as he said that, or as soon as that tweet popped up, I go, yeah, that I hear it, I feel it.
Jonathan also going to be coming up on our show here, Mark, and he even mentioned that he's considering a podcast of his own. I'm not going to ruin it or anything, but I'm going to mention it on the air so that he's more pressured to do it now because I really want to hear his show.
All right, get on it, Jonathan.
Yeah. Der Urs says, classic Van Halen with Eddie's playing at its best, intro, outro, solo, and great harmonies, but gave it a thumbs down because of Dave singing, which I find annoying on this song. Even though I'm a morbid Dave guy, he just can't do ballads. So there you go.
Well, okay, so yeah, there it is. There's a reason. At least that is a very sound reason, and I'm not going to knock you for that. So thank you, Der Urs, for your explanation.
Yes, absolutely.
I still think you're wrong on the downvote, but it's fine.
But we respect the opinion, absolutely.
Yeah, we respect it. Yes.
And finally, Greg Zito says, this is a great track. Love the harmonics and harmonies. It sounds like Templeman and Landy brought Michael Anthony up the mix on Van Halen 2. The chemistry of all these elements is magic.
That's the key word right there, magic. So
Absolutely.
yes, I agree 1000%. And thank you all for your comments and your feedback on Women in Love. So, all right.
I believe it's that time, Mark.
It is that time. It is that time indeed. So before we go to the wheel and spin it, I have to ask, Corey, I'll start with you. You said you were in a mood. It's a busy time for you. What in all the world, while we do this show, what song can Van Halen bring to you? What can the wheel bring to you that's going to boost your spirits? Anything you want to manifest?
Well, I tell you what, we did a practice spin just to make sure everything is working on the new system here. And we spun the wheel and we spun Spanked. And I'm very happy that was the practice spin because the odds of it hitting twice, I think, are astronomical. So, you know what? I'm kind of in a different kind of truth mood. I would love to hear some She's the Woman.
Ah, all right. Different kind of truth. Maybe so. The wheel seems to like that album once in a while. So yeah, very possible. Brian, you are the guest. You are here to talk some Van Halen. What particular Van Halen song are you most fond of that you would like to hear that we haven't done? Or is there just is there something you just have in mind in particular that you want to manifest?
Well, I will say that the only thing that I'm nervous about appearing on this podcast is the song that's going to appear on the wheel. There's definitely songs that I would love to pop up. I think Humans Being would be really cool. I think Pound Cake would be really cool. There's definitely tons of Dave songs that I love to hear. I'm a equal opportunity guy. I love both Hagar and Roth eras. But I think, and this is kind of like a lame answer, but I kind of want like a deep cut. There was a few weeks ago where you guys pulled In a Simple Rhyme from Women and Children First. And like, that's one of those songs where it's not really in heavy rotation for me when I'm thinking about Van Halen, but when I listen to Women and Children First and it pops up, I'm like, God damn, that song is so cool. And I feel like there's at least 10 or 12 Van Halen songs that are like that, where you just kind of forget that they're out there. And then when they pop up on, like when you're listening to the album, you're like, oh, that's a really good album. So like, I'm hoping for one of those deep cuts. And I would say that the only thing that I'm hoping to avoid is something from A Different Kind of Truth, because that's probably it is really the only album that like, I'm just not that familiar with. Like I've listened to it a few times, but it's certainly not like in my regular rotation of all the Van Halen albums. So like I know the songs, but not nearly as well as the other albums. So like that's definitely my weak spot.
All right. Okay. Well, a deep cut. It's not outside the realm of possibility. We still have plenty of those. We still got plenty of hits too. The wheel has been very, very fickle, yet sometimes fair in giving us a bit of a pardon the pun, a balance of the two. It's like, here's some deep tracks, here's some hits, here's some ones that you really don't want to hear, but here you go anyway. So as for me, look, full disclosure, I am in my final week at my current job. I'm starting a new job very soon. Friday will be my last day. So I'm going out with a bang. So I personally, for tonight, would love to hear a song that's just really kind of two middle fingers to the man and something just rip roaring and rocking. I know that it would be great if we hadn't already spun something like Hot for Teacher or something of the sort, but we've already discussed it. You can, and if you missed that show, go back and take a listen. But you know what? I need to hear something like Pound Cake or I need to hear, oh God, something that just, Unchained, I think. Unchained would be super fun, even though it's not really a Damn the Man sort of song, but it's fun and it's heavy and I like it. So Pound Cake or Unchained, give me either one of those. I'm calling it out. I'm gonna be like Eric Sinich and just call my shot. Let's give me at least one of those.
All right, sounds good. So I'm going to give this a good shuffle. Get it as far away from Spanked as I can fucking get. All right, gentlemen, are you ready to go?
You just messed up now. You should have left it alone.
I know.
But yeah,
and not that the listeners need any validation, but the wheel is real. I'm looking at it right now.
And mobile. I was able to bring it here to this new location. So we're not spinning it from Weyburn. We're going to see. Maybe we're going to get something really, really cool. Who knows? Here, let's give it a spin and find out.
Here we go.
Well, you wanted a deep cut. How about Sucker in a three-piece from OU812?
That totally works.
Definitely a deep cut. Right. Brian, what are your thoughts on OU812?
Well, oddly enough, OU812 is kind of like not the official entry point for me for Van Halen, but it was it definitely where things took off for me. So OU812 came out in '88. I was 13. And I had been listening to Diver Down in 1984, but I was a kid. I didn't have any disposable income. So these were copies of tapes that friends had and things like that. So I would listen to Diver Down in 1984 a lot. One of my older brothers had 5150 on vinyl. And so when he wasn't around, I would sneak into his room and I would listen to that. But it was at that point in my life, it was very kind of greatest hit stuff. I was listening to Hot for Teacher, Panama, Jump, Dreams, those types of things. And OU812 is a weird album for me because if I'm not mistaken, Black and Blue was the first single from that album. And when that started playing on the radio, it blew my mind. And I was like, holy shit, I've always liked Van Halen, but now who are these guys? I have to learn more. And I still like Black and Blue. I think it's a great song. I don't think I'd put it in my top even 20 Van Halen songs, but there was just something about that point in my life where it hit and I was like, I really like these guys. And so the first Van Halen show I ever saw was on the OU812 tour in Cincinnati in October of '88. And I remember going to that concert. And again, this is obviously pre-internet. And so didn't have a whole lot of background about Van Halen, but I remember during Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo, he played Cathedral from Diver Down. And I always thought that was a keyboard song because I was like, who can make that noise on a guitar? It's gotta be a keyboard. And so when I saw him playing it on a guitar, I was just on the edge of my seat. What the hell am I witnessing? This is incredible. And when I got home from that concert, it was all over. It was just nothing but Van Halen for me for the next 15 years. I was buying all their albums, going to all of their tours. So OU812 was a really big album for me because it was the first one that I bought with my own money and just dove into head first and was just listening to it over and over again. So ton of history with this album.
Right on.
Awesome.
How about you, Corey?
Well, OU812 obviously was a big album for me. I remember when Black and Blue came out too, and had a very similar reaction. I really loved that song. Then of course you had your big power ballad on there, When It's Love, which I know Mark is a big fan of. Finish What You Started was always kind of my favorite cut on that one. But Sucker in a Three-Piece, it's the last song on the vinyl. On the CD, you get a 10-song Apolitical Blues, but it was never included on the vinyl version because they ran out of time. So we always talk about the production on this album maybe not being top-notch. Dom Landy, along with Van Halen, was the producer on this one, but some really good tunes on this one, and I'm really looking forward to this one tonight. I haven't spun Sucker in a Three-Piece in a while. I haven't spun OU812 actually in a long time, so I'm really looking forward to this one. How about you, Mark?
That I'm in the similar boat as you are. I haven't really spun this album in its entirety in a very, very long time. And when I do even go to this album, I go to the usual ones. I go to Finish What You Started. I go to When It's Love, Cabo Wabo, of course. And then, We did Feel So Good and AFU on the show here. So I've been kind of more in tuned with some of the songs based on the show here. Sucker in a Three-Piece is kind of one that I know I've heard because, you know, I've spun the record before, but I could not tell you too much about it because, again, it's one of those I just sort of don't really go to or I skip over. So listening to this with a more open, fresh perspective is going to be really interesting because I actually really do like this album, despite the fact that it doesn't sound as great, but there's still a lot to enjoy about it.
All right, so if you guys are ready, let's spin a little Sucker in a Three-Piece from OU812.
Do it.
All right, Mark, I can see you enjoying that intro.
I completely forgot that this is the song that has that particular intro because I know this intro pretty well because I've heard it just sort of out in the world or whatever, and I you know it's Van Halen just from the sound of Eddie's tone in the guitar, but I don't think I ever correlated it to being the intro for Sucker in a Three-Piece. So this was kind of a nice revelation, I guess you could say, because I forgot. But no, man, I love it. It's just he's not overly flashy, but he's just giving you a little taste of things to come the best way Eddie can.
Brian, any thoughts?
You've kind of mentioned about the production quality of OU812, and that's probably my biggest complaint about this album is, and it's not any secret, everyone knows, it's just very stripped of any kind of bass. It's very kind of like AM radio sounding, and I hope that someday they come out with like a remastered version that kind of boosts some of that bass because it's in there, you can hear it, but it just doesn't have any like oomph, especially when you get to like For All Lawful Carnal Knowledge and you hear like how much like how great that sounds. So it's a shame that it doesn't sound better, but this song is great because I think there's a number of songs on OU812 that sound live, like it just sounds like the band just jamming and playing, and this is one of those songs where it's just like it really sounds like they just hit record and the four guys are just in a room and they're just playing. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of like overdubs or anything like that, so that's one thing I always liked about it. And musically, I think the song kicks ass. We're going to get to the lyrics in a little bit, and I think that's going to knock it down a little bit, but for the most part, yeah, this is actually one of my favorites on the album.
I just love that for the first minute of the song, it was the Van Halen brothers fucking around. Right? Like you had Eddie for like the first 15, 20 by himself, and then Alex came in, and I didn't hear any bass at all. It was just them kind of fiddling around, and then a minute in, I hear a Sammy howl, and then it kicks into the song proper. But I just always kind of thought that was cool.
I love a good Sammy howl.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
She's so fine. How about a 9 on a 10 scale? The long legs, straight on to a lunch bell.
All right, there's some Sammy lyrics for you, Mark. First of all, She's So Fine. How about a 9 on a 10 scale? Wasn't his first solo album called 9 on a 10 scale?
Could have been. So maybe it's a little bit self-indulgent. However, what I'm noticing so far from this lyrics, not outside the characteristics you'd find in a Roth tune. I'm just pointing that out.
with long legs straight up onto her lunch pail. What the fuck is that about?
Look, I'm not trying to explain the logic behind it. I'm just saying, listen to the way Sammy's singing it and the sort of metaphors he's using, which are a little bit nonsensical. But yeah, I could see David Lee Roth just as easily doing a song like that.
No,
because he's done songs like that.
This is up for breakfast level. Straight up onto her lunch pail.
Come on. We're just in the first two lines. You can't go that far just yet.
All right, let's hear what the next line is. Sweet little wishbone. Sweet little wishbone. Oh yeah, I don't want to break her in half.
It's pretty.
The thing I appreciate most about Sammy's lyrics is they're so cryptic, and you really have to like dig in and like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, like
there are times where you think like, well, I know exactly what he's talking about, and then he'll throw something else at you and go, well, wait, no, now I'm quite. Yeah. What are we talking about?
Tell you what, finish what you started. You know exactly what he's talking about. That whole song. Yeah. He was right in the zone on that one. This one, Sweet Little Wishbone, don't want to break her in half. Lick up on one side and down the other always makes her laugh.
Oh yeah, so he's like licking her like a dog. Okay. Rick James would do that. Oh come on.
She take me down, down, down to the bottom. I got everything you wanted. Give you anything you need. Still you want that sugar daddy over me. She wanna suck her in a three-piece.
All right, that chorus may save it. The verses there's some pretty childish lyrics, but that chorus is pretty badass.
I mean, yeah, like poor boy's broke. How's he gonna compete with?
Well, you can with a sucker in a
three-piece suit. I mean, look, three-piece suits. That's when dude's got some money.
That's right. Brian, any thoughts?
No, I'm just wondering why Sammy doesn't think that he can compete with a sucker in a three-piece. But then I remember this is like right before Sammy got Tequila Bunny. So right. He's like, he is probably a little envious of those like financial bankers or, the guys in the three-piece suits. But like a year or two from now, when he's got that Cabo Wabo money, he's like, fuck you, sucker in a three-piece. I'm winning this battle now.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it probably also speaks to his fashionable sense a little bit, because I've never seen Sammy in a suit. Most of the times I see Sammy in like a sleeveless shirt and shorts. That's about it. Like maybe in the 80s he would throw on just a button down shirt with it unbuttoned, but no three-piece suit.
She don't like the way I dress. She don't like the way I wear my hair.
Hey, she might have a point. You guys remember what Sammy Hagar dressed like 1988, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And look, this line is way more sensical than the first one. So
yes, it is.
You had to give him one verse to kind of find his footing, and then once he did, he's just like, okay, now I know where we're going.
Yeah,
let's do it.
It's getting a little bit more grounded now.
100%. I will agree with you there. Yeah, he's on the right track now. He brought her back. It's not up for breakfast.
No, thank you.
She wanna suck it.
Well, say what you want about the lyrical content of Sucker in a Three-Piece. I think it's pretty straightforward now. But listen to what he's doing vocally. Like Sammy is giving you some primo Hagar vocalizations, man. He is like all up and down the scale, and he's doing it like it's effortless. Let me tell you something. It's not whatsoever.
But it sounds so easy when he does it, right? It's like, oh, why can't everybody sound like that? Because that's how good Sammy Hagar is.
That's how good Sammy Hagar is. Yeah, it's like, and even at 75, happy birthday, Sammy.
Yep, he could still bust this out with Sammy in the Circle on tour and still kill it, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
He's got Mike Anthony on bass to sing those high harmonies for him on Sucker.
And he can still kill it.
There you go. I'm sure these guys are listening. So break out Sucker in a Three-Piece on tour this summer, fellas.
Hey, Michael said he was going to check out the show. So, hey, buddy, like, please feel free to come on down. We love your work.
Yeah.
Now say it isn't so, baby. You sucker. Just a sucker. You just a sucker. Look at all that money, baby. You know, your sugar daddy. You a sugar mama. Hey, your mama.
Sorry, Mark. I thought you were cueing me. You were just air guitaring.
I at first I thought that was the end of the solo, and I was like, oh wait, no, there's still more to go. Keep going.
Tell you, not until the very end did I hear any bass. I thought, is it my headphones? Like I have a different setup here. Did you guys hear really any bass during that section?
It's pretty weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was weak, but I could hear exactly what Michael's doing a whole lot during that solo section.
Good. I heard
not
it
as
near
much
the
as not as much as Eddie, obviously, but he's keeping that rhythm very steady while throwing in a few flavors. That whole section was fire, though. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it more later, but just wow, like that's sweatiness right there is what happened. That's how fire that was.
As much as I love For a Lawful Carnal Knowledge and how great that album sounds, I think OU812 is like the last album that has the tone of Eddie's guitar that I love the most, because like it does change once you get to Fuck, and in on this album it's like peak Brown sound. It's just like that really great tone that Eddie has, and you really hear it on a bunch of songs on OU812, but particularly like during this solo, and it's like, oh, I miss that sound, because like as the albums go on, you start to hear it just gets like crunchier and crunchier, and it's still great, but it's just not the tone that I love.
Sucker! strap.
I forgot that little piece was in there.
I did too. Because he's talking about something else entirely, and then he throws that in there. It's just like, oh, speaking of suckers. It's like, oh, come on, man.
Come on, man.
But look, man, I told you I'm a big fan of a Sammy Howell, and you got some like crazy Sammy Howells in this. The part right before the before the solo. You're all a bunch of suckers, where he's just elongating that. I can't even get that high because I'm not Sammy Hagar. Sorry. But you know what I'm talking about. And then right here, right before he ruined it with that outro, still a good Sammy Howell is a good Sammy Howell. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. So, gentlemen, that means it's time to vote.
All right. So, you know what, Corey, I'm going to start with you. We're gonna change it up a little bit.
All right,
Corey, you've said a few things. You've said your piece, at least a little bit of your piece for Sucker in a 3-piece. But the real question remains: is Sucker in a 3-piece what dreams are made of, or did it just suck the life right out of you and the dream is over?
Well, I tell you, I wavered a couple times in the song. I thought I was going to be on one side, thought I'd be on the other side, but ultimately. Not my favorite song. Yeah, I know it got a little, again, bear with me, folks. Not my favorite track off OU812, but there's definitely enough good stuff here that this is what dreams are made of. Like you said, that whole solo section was fire. I would like a little more bass. I know, and again, speculation is, and because we don't fucking know anything, but people have speculated that it was the growing animosity between the Van Halen brothers and Mike Anthony. That's why his bass was turned down. But like I said, some good shit on here. The first verse, it had the rest of the song, the lyric writing been on that par, I may have downvoted it. But Sammy saved it. Verse 2 was great. Verse 3, until we got to the very end. And I thought, oh, geez, am I going to downvote it based on that? But no, more positives than negatives on this one. So for me, this is what dreams are made of.
All right, there you go. There's one. Brian, our guest today. You wanted a deep cut. We got. I think this is a pretty deep cut. I don't think a lot of people are like super aware of the song from this album. So with that being said, was Sucker in a 3-piece for you what dreams are made of, or is the dream over?
Hey.
This is exactly the type of song I was looking for. That kind of like underappreciated deep cut on an otherwise good album. It's juvenile. I mean, just listen to the lyrics. It's pretty ridiculous. But if you listen carefully, there is kind of like a narrative there where it starts off with like Sammy feeling a little insecure about the Sucker in the 3-piece, but as the song goes on, like I feel like he's gaining confidence and he's like, no, screw that guy, I'm the dude you want to be with. And so it does kind of build to something. Musically, I think it's way better than it is lyrically, but like I said earlier, it just seems like a jam. It just seems like they're all just in the studio and they hit record and they're all just cranking something out, and not my favorite song on OU812, but definitely not something I'm going to skip.
All right, Mark Kamara, that just leaves you. You're a big Sammy fan. You're a big fan of this album. But you admitted the lyrics were maybe a little childish. Which way is your vote going to go? Is this what dreams are made of, or is this dream over?
I can already hear it now. Like, Mark's just going to upvote anything Sammy does. And that's just absolutely not true. I think we've proven that at some point. But nevertheless, is this song the best Van Halen song? Is this the best Sammy song? No, not at all. I don't think it's trying to be. It's definitely not going to be the standout track from OU812. It's got to compete with Cabo Wabo, When It's Love, Finish What You Started. It's not going to win that fight. So it's just trying to be a good rock tune, a little bit silly at first, sure, maybe a lot bit silly, but that's kind of part of the charm of Van Halen. You get a lot of silliness when you get the seriousness, and the seriousness with this song is the riffs. The music itself is very serious. It's very in your face. It's very not fast paced, but it's got a good sort of flowy tempo. It's not slow. It's not like overly fast. It's that perfect sort of middle ground. And my God, we talk about Eddie's solo ability ad nauseum on this show because, well, why wouldn't we? It's Eddie Van Halen. That right there is understanding the assignment he created because, you know, he wrote it. But he is very great playing a solo that's going to fit the song. We talk about this a lot. This is a solo that fits the song and it enhances it. Honestly, I was kind of with you, Corey, on it at first. If the lyrical content hadn't gotten a little bit better by the second verse, I might have also downvoted it just because, like, I just can't. I can't. Like the music sounds good, but the lyrics are so bad. However, he saved it, and I'm glad that I was sort of sticking up for Sammy and sticking up for his ability. Like, what? Just wait. Maybe it'll get better, and it did. Thankfully, the little tag at the end, notwithstanding, whatever, it's fine. Childish, maybe, but I tell you this is exactly the kind of song that I did need tonight. I maybe it wasn't the song that I wanted to manifest, but I needed it. I needed a good rock tune to sort of take my brain away. The real sucker in a three-piece is, as of this recording, my former bosses. So suck it, suckers.
There you go.
So there you have it. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you, Van Halen. Happy birthday to you. That is Sucker in a three-piece, a clean sweep, what dreams are made of, if maybe just by a margin, but it's fine. And there you have it. Yeah. So anything else? Any other final words on Sucker in a three-piece from you, gentlemen?
Well, one thing that we can agree on is that the single greatest Van Halen lyric ever recorded onto tape was Sammy screaming, "You got a big old belly." Like, it just doesn't get any deeper than that. And it really makes you think about, life.
Oh, I would have said suck it all up right down to the last drop. But yeah, we'll do we'll do that one. Big old belly.
He paints quite a picture. He got a big old belly and a stone bald head.
I still maintain this is exactly the kind of thing you'd hear from a Roth tune as well. But fine, we'll leave it be.
But better, yeah. He might sing the same premise, but he'd come up with better language, more flowery language to describe the sucker in a three-piece. And when I'm thinking about Wishbone, and geez, we're talking about spatchcocking again almost, and we saw how far off the rails that got.
We're not there. You already admitted this is not up for breakfast. We've done that. It's done. I concede that was a terrible song. I concede.
Play Splat and Bone.
Oh, still waiting on the shirts for that, but yeah, there you go. And that's that. I mean, there you go. There's the song. You guys, let us know how you felt about Sucker in a three-piece. Did you agree with us? Did it just beat out being The Dream Is Over? Or I can't wait to hear the folks talk about this one. If you thought Up for Breakfast was just all the rage in terms of the Twitter polls and the commentary, I'm very excited to see what you guys say about this one. So there you have it. Before we head out, order of business. Corey, tell the people where they can find the show, all the information with us, and where they can find you if they just want to shout you out.
Well, they can find the show at www.podcastwillrock.com. You can get some merch. You can listen to past episodes. There's a forum on there, too. If you actually want to be on this train wreck, send it away, and we'll get to you eventually. As Brian can attest, it took him like 8 months, but eventually we got him on the show. You can also find us on Twitter, at Podcast Will Rock. You can find me at CD Morset, and you can find us as part of the Deep Dive Podcasting Network, which features such great shows as the Deep Purple Podcast, Sabbath Bloody Podcast, Skinner Reconsidered, In the Lap of the Pods, The Magicians Podcast, Hawk Binge, Maiden A to Z, Diary of the Madman, The Metal Gods Podcast, Universally Speaking, Backtracks Aerosmith Revisited, So Far, So Pod, So What, The Tom Petty Project, Backtracks theme music, and T-Bone's Crime Cuts on the Other Side.
just a cavalcade of awesome content. So be sure to check out all those guys, all the stuff on the Deep Dive Network. Thank you so much. Brian, you are our guest tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Patience is a virtue, as they say. So I hope it was definitely worth your time and hope the song fit the motif of what you were going for. Please tell the people about your podcast once again and tell them what they can expect.
Yeah, so I am just 50% of the You're All Doomed podcast. My friend and co-host Greg is the other half, but we share social media accounts. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's at YAD Podcast. You can find us on any of the major podcasting systems, apps, whatever you want to call it, just by searching for You're All Doomed. It's a perfect time of the season to catch up on Friday the 13th movies. So if you want to do a rewatch of the movies and listen to our podcast, you've got over 100 episodes to listen to, but we're still chugging and hoping for a new movie, or at least some news about a new movie in the new year. But thank you for having me on. When I found out about this podcast, right when it started, my first reaction was, God damn it, why didn't I think of this? Because it was exactly like totally what I would have done. Like, been a Van Halen fan for so long. I'm like, why didn't I think of this? So first of all, I was jealous. And then the second thing I did was send a tweet to Corey, and I was like, please have me on at some point. And then eventually practically showed up on his doorstep knocking, like, please let me on. So thank you. It was a great time. I'm glad I didn't get something from Van Halen 3 that I had to pretend to like, or a different kind of truth that I had to pretend to know. So I got a pretty good song. I'm happy with it.
Oh, you don't have to pretend with us whatsoever. if you're not familiar with it, or if you just absolutely detest it, like, feel free to speak it aloud. We do it all the time. It's all well and good. Just like Corey really doesn't want to spin the song Spanked. But eventually we will. And eventually he's just going to have to talk about it. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here and go, come on, Corey, give me more. Let's hear some more. Let's hear some more.
Why are you bringing this up? We were having a nice time. We had Brian on the show. Everyone was having a great time. Then you fucking bring up Spanked again.
I'm trying to just sort of prepare you, because the day is coming.
I know.
It's one of those things, I gotta bust chops a little bit. Mariona's not here, so I have to sort of be a somewhat fill-in.
You're filling in nicely for him. Let me just put it that way.
That is that a compliment or isn't it? Guess we'll let the audience decide.
Tune in next week.
To find out. Friday the 13th marathon actually sounds really awesome, as long as I don't have to put myself through that last one, because I was not a fan. But regardless, I think I will check out You're All Doomed while I do it, because I like to hear some insight. And if you like to hear insight about what we do, just remember this. We are not experts. We are simple fans who enjoy the music, and we're rediscovering it through this journey, just like you are rediscovering the music of Van Halen through this journey with us. We appreciate you being on this journey with us, even if what you have to say isn't so positive. It's fine. You're on the journey. We're on the journey. That's what it's all about. Be sure to keep track, you guys. The year anniversary is vastly approaching. We've heard your feedback. We've seen the polls, and we're going to mull some things over and figure out what we're going to do, because we want our 1 year to be special. So be on the lookout for that. Keep listening, keep tuning in, keep sharing. Let your friends that are Van Halen fans know about us. Let us know what they think. And that will do it for us on behalf of Corey, Brian, and myself. We are, and the podcast will rock, and we will rock you later.